This is a special video, so instead of being straight to the point like most of my other videos, I'll show about everything that's on my mind. I stated in my last video all my thoughts about the new opening and ending for Attack on Titan's episodic format, and why I thought it pointed to AoE in an episodic format. One specific thing that was extremely suspicious was how it was going to be a weekly release. However, it seems like things went very south on November 19th. Apparently the info on Attack on Titan's Twitter explaining how the episodic format would release was incorrect. Core 2's episodic format released on November 19th all at once instead of weekly, and there was only one change. It ended after the bird wrapped the scarf around Mixa, and Paradise Island being bombed was removed. This was my reaction upon seeing the episodic format. I was disappointed, but in the end that's just the way it is. As I've said from the beginning, I believe that ANR is the destination. That's why I believed in AoE, because ANR is the destination. It's still logical to believe in that destination, considering how an alternate ending is still being foreshadowed long after the manga ended. Considering what we saw in the opening for the episodic format, it's even more suspicious now, because they're clearly displaying AoE elements after the anime ended. I don't think it wasn't logical at all to think AoE could happen in the episodic format because of that, especially considering how the cover for The Last Henin literally has ANR in it. It still doesn't make sense why they would hint to AoE after the manga ended, and now after the anime ended. To make things more simple, I'm going to say it here and now. AoE is dead. However, AoE is alive. As a reference to Muv-Love, my discussions about an alternate ending will now be called Alternative Original Ending instead of AoE. It fits as an umbrella term for basically every theory remotely related to ANR. I still believe that ANR is the destination. What has kept my hope fully alive for all this time is the simple basis that there's still something substantial we know is coming that could lead to our alternative original ending. Since the manga ended, that was me waiting for the anime. When Core 2 ended, I waited for the episodic format since that seemed substantial enough. And now there's only one substantial thing left that I think is the beginning of our AoE, Shingeki Fly. It all starts September 9th. Isayama's editor for the manga suddenly said this: "Today is September 9th, 2023. It has been 14 years since the serialization of Attack on Titan began. During the serialization, it seems that I can finally fulfill the promise that I often talked about with everyone. We plan to release information starting from October 4th, so I would be happy if you could follow Shingeki Fly." On October 4th, what Shingeki Fly would be about was announced. Attack on Titan Art Book Fly Release Decided includes all-color illustrations drawn by Hajime Isayama. A new volume 35, which includes a newly drawn manga, Bad Boy. Bad Boy is an 18-page long special about Levi's childhood. Buying Shingeki Fly includes Aaron's Key, Mixa's Scarf, a copy of Chapter 139, and Volume 35, which has Levi's childhood story in it. And then inside of Volume 35 too, a top-secret final draft. This top-secret final draft has some storyboards we saw of the anime original scenes in Core 2. So with that, Volume 35 should be about 20 to 50 pages total. In this video, we can see Isayama wearing Mixa's scarf, the Shingeki Fly art book, the copy of Chapter 139, Aaron's Key, and Volume 35. As you can see, the amount of pages doesn't fit 50 pages. Someone said the rest of Volume 35 is probably interviews, but it specifically says for Shingeki Fly that it includes, quote, the long interview with Hajime Isayama included in the art book, so it seems like it's in the art book section specifically, not Volume 35. Before I talk about Shingeki Fly further, let me show a video from a song made by Linked Horizon.
Wahrheit.
Obviously, there are many AoE related elements in the song. The line, "For you in 2000 years, are you free?" is a very clear indication that Ymir is being talked to in this song. It's about Ymir and what dreams she has before she's reincarnated. You can also hear a heartbeat throughout this song, like a baby in the womb. The lyrics say, "What do you want? What would you like to do? For what reason and where will you go? What kind of person do you want to be? Or, do you just want to erase your existence?" This is a reference to the manga outcome, where Ymir moves on by dying. Also, when this line is said, you can hear a bomb dropping just like in the manga outcome. So the question is, does Ymir want to erase her own existence, or does she want to be reborn? The final line in this song is, "I will ask again when spring comes." As the song fades out, we hear a voice saying, "Advance towards the truth." We hear a baby start to cry, and then the song ends. This next clip is from an old video I made April 2023, from AoE Concluded Chapter 9. If you're an OG AoE fan, you'd probably remember this AOT video that has what people theorize to be a song about Eren asking Ymir what she wants in her life that ends with, "I will ask you again when spring comes." Spring represents rebirth, renewal, and love like in the anime ending. Fall represents death and failure like in the manga ending. And Core 2 will release in the fall. Spring is also the season Attack on Titan Chapter 1 and Episode 1 released. Noko, the composer for the Maya War opening, knows the ending of Attack on Titan and knows how long the final season will be as a whole. He said he thinks the real final episode will be a movie. If Part 3 was originally going to be a movie, it could recontextualize this scene in the high school universe. At the very end, Eren, Armin, and Mikasa walk out after seeing a bad movie. Then Eren says if there's another one we should go see it, hinting that the movie they saw wasn't actually the end. If Core 1 came out and Core 2 releases in fall, we would have to wait another 6 months to see Core 2. If Core 2 wasn't the end, following the pattern, we'd have to wait another 6 months to see the true final part, which is also spring. So to put it simply, spring is used in AOT media to reference AoE multiple times. In ANR, it's constantly spring. In Okuma no Ko, it's also spring. You can also see it's dawn here too. In Linked Horizons music, spring and dawn are used to represent a new beginning, rebirth, renewal, and love. Fall and dusk is used to represent an end, death, and failure. Right now, we're in fall. Once again, Linked Horizon 100% has known the ending of Attack on Titan for years, considering how the Gurren no Yumiya music video showed Mikasa killing Eren. There's many lyrics out there describing how Eren needs to fight through dusk, into the night, and reach that scenery at dawn, which we know is the ANR ending. You can see in this shot from the past memory sequence in Season 4 Part 2 how Falco is flying at dusk. This represents how Eren wasn't able to make it through dusk to dawn. Here are some lyrics from multiple Linked Horizon songs. Breathing yourself in crimson light, you head beyond the horizon. I'm sure that one day you'll overtake the setting sun. Like a crimson arrow, you will set yourself ablaze, and head towards a distant freedom. The arrow that signals the start of his counterattack will one day pierce the setting sun. Aim straight at where beginning and end meet. There's a future we must take in our hands, no matter the sacrifices. The name of this bloodstained and cold-hearted determination is freedom. Go forth to feast yourselves on dreams at dawn. Stained by the scarlet of sin, they fly unknowingly to their own deaths. Countless shadows fall to the earth and call dusk upon themselves. Arrows soar through the sunset, bearing wings on their backs, and their trills will pave the path to freedom. The setting sun we once saw, before it sank and disappeared out of view. At the end of sorrow and grief, we look for the beautifully blooming flowers. We await the break of dawn on the night of the revolution. For all the nameless flower petals scattered throughout the darkness, please rest peacefully when dawn breaks. Turning our backs to the dusk, we instead chose to cling to the back of a burning hope, and we chase after the truth, knowing very well the path to it would also lead to hell. Even in the last canon, this is still consistent. Chased by the falling sun, tearing at my wings, I yearn for Dawn's song with longing. Eren was supposed to reach Dawn's song, but he failed. There's an unused song for the final season literally called Into the Night. Shingeki Fly is set to release this spring. Not only that, but Isayama said this in an interview for Shingeki Fly. I hope the tree I plan to plant in Obita will grow for 10 years, 20 years, and become so big that it will swallow the monument built next to it, just like the final episode of Attack on Titan. However, if it grows that much, it will be a distant future story after I have fulfilled my lifespan, and I will be sad if no one knows Attack on Titan in that era, so I have to work hard from now on. In this case, I guess if Volume 35 has significance after all, it could mean that AoE will in fact be adapted in both manga form and anime form. That's just my thoughts on Shingeki Fly. I still don't fully think Shingeki Fly will be anything too significant, but there's definitely implications there. Besides that, this video is going to have my last major theory. Today we'll be discussing this, and how it's a nod to AoE as a whole. First, what do wormholes do? They lead to different regions in space. They lead to the past or future. They lead to alternate paths or timelines. Why is this important? Take a look at when Eren enters paths. This directly depicts a wormhole. And look what the wormhole is speckled with. Balls. As Eren goes through the wormhole, we see balls coming at us. The general consensus is that this is the manga timeline, which is implied to be a parallel timeline now due to how the manga outcome happened in Core 2 regardless. What do we see when we get a glimpse of Eren's eyes? Balls. I believe Eren's balls represent each different path. You can see one of them in his pupil, representing the path he's looking at, while the other paths are close to. What do we see when Eren looks at the school cast path? Many balls. This is what I claimed in an analysis of Eren's balls that I made more than half a year ago. Why are Eren's balls important now? In the new opening, when Eren is overwhelmed, you can see them here. Eren is being overwhelmed with visions of different memories and paths, and it all swirls into a vortex. This vortex culminates as a shot coming from Titan Eren's mouth, with this strange explosion effect used too. Eren's eyes are glowing white here, which is different from any other way Eren's eyes have glowed. What's the significance of a white glow? I believe we'll see Eren stop being overwhelmed by the mess of memories from different paths, the reason that caused Eren to act the way he did in the manga outcome, and find his resolve despite that mess. White is what you get when you combine all colors into one. In this sense, Eren's eyes glowing white symbolically shows how this Titan Eren is the culmination that results from the mess of memories being used to fight. As you may have heard me mention in a previous video, I explained how Eren isn't just on any rocky field, but the field that the Alliance is present at during the rumbling. Have you ever wondered what's going on with where Paths even is? Of course, we know Paths is an alternate realm that's a seemingly endless field of sand with an endless starry sky, but Paths having stars implies that there's more places outside of Paths somehow. Does this imply Paths takes place on a planet or a star? If you're like me, you may have also questioned this and assumed it was just something not meant to be understood. But what if I have told you I have solved why there are stars and paths? That's right, the stars we see in this realm aren't actually stars. They're balls. Again, the significance of Eren's balls is that they're different paths. Why paths having these stars is super important in the context of AoE, because this fully means that Isayama intended for alternate universes to be relevant in the context of the story. Paths literally represents paths. Why is that such an important yet hidden plot point? Why hint at something time and time again that nobody would be able to understand outside the context of AoE? Without AoE, we'll never know. On the topic of AoE, there's been a somewhat popular mini-theory called MOE. Basically, it's just, what if AoE happens in a movie? Personally, I don't really care. Even back then, I considered MOE as just another name for an anime original ending, since we assumed either wouldn't be adapted in the manga. Will AoE happen in an episodic format or a movie? Personally, I'd prefer AoE in an episodic format. AoE happening in a movie seems more complicated. Even so, it seems like people are super competitive over it being a movie specifically, which I don't understand. People have challenged me to bet my entire YouTube account on the belief that it won't happen in a movie. I don't get that at all because I don't care at all what format AoE happens in. I think I said it best in an argument I had with an MOE believer about half a year ago. I'm not going to delete my channel if I'm wrong when I say a movie ending won't happen. I was wrong about a movie ending not happening? Nice, time to move on. Core 2 is the true ending? Good. Movie is the true ending? Good. I hope that puts it close to all those people asking me about my thoughts on MOE. I think AoE would probably start at chapter 131 and continue on from there. Or maybe it can go the crazy route and start from after Eren kissed Historia's hand, exploring Eren trying to stop that inevitable future he saw, just like in Love of Alternative. Another reason why I always felt like AoE should happen in an episodic format instead of a movie is because Love of Alternative is a super long plot, and using that as a reference, I feel like AoE would be better off having a good 12 long episode length. Especially considering how Love of Alternative shows crazy plot points that recontextualize the entire story. The ending of Love of Unlimited leaves pretty much everything up in the air. What happened to the character Sumika? Why doesn't she exist in the reality where the beta exists? Why is the character Kasumi so similar to Sumika? What was the alternative floor plan? What is Yuko's connection to it? We don't even get to see what the beta looked like in Love of Unlimited. It's all left ambiguous, but isn't necessarily a plot hole, since the story can still stand on 2 feet without those questions being solved. Regardless, the creator of Love of worked hard and made sure that Love of Alternative completed the story fully. What are things in Attack on Titan that are left ambiguous? Outside the context of AoE, what is the cabin timeline? We've only seen bits and pieces of Eren and Historia's conversation, but not the full thing. These shards shown in chapter 130 were never explained and never appeared. The shard of Historia, the shard of Hanji in tears while talking, this shard of Flush smiling in a formal attire with somebody standing behind him, this shard of Mikasa with short hair crying and smiling at the same time. As you know, this art represents Ymir giving herself to the devil. Historia parallels Ymir, and this alternate version shows a woman giving an apple to a hooded devil holding a lamp. This is generally considered as symbolism for Historia offering to have a child with Eren. Why is it that this shot shows Eren in his hooded outfit with a lamp present, while this is in the sequence where we see Historia asking Eren what he thinks about having a child? What is the actual significance of birds outside of symbolism? In one of the shards shown in chapter 130, we see a shot of Falco from the perspective of a bird. When a bird flies past Mikasa in the anime, she sees a vision of the cabin timeline. It's implied that the cabin timeline was being viewed by Eren and Mikasa through a bird. And, obviously, the scene where a bird wraps Mikasa's scarf around her. Why did Grisha want to stop Eren, but suddenly change his mind and give Eren his Titan powers? It's said here itself.
まだ親父が俺に食われるところを見てないぞ。お前か、父さんは金の親、世界の戦いに死んでた。死んでる巨人に本当に時を超える能力があるのは都合のいい記憶だけをグリシャに見せて影響を与えることが可能だ。父さん、グリシャは不健康なプラネットだ。お前の記憶を見るに、始祖の巨人を奪っても自分がその力を使えないことを知っていたから。しかし、始祖を奪い、それをお前に託した。もっと先の未来を見たからだ。先にある何かをお前が見せたことで。
It's confirmed that something happened that caused Grisha to change his mind. Zeke didn't get to see it. We didn't get to see it. Zeke literally says Eren showed Grisha something that hasn't happened yet. What did Eren show Grisha? This is completely ignored. Also, what was his crest? If you remember, Mikasa had a specific bandage on her wrist hiding this crest throughout the entire story, being told by her mother to keep it a secret.
けなげなことでしょう。およそ100年以上前、東人家の御親にあたる我が将軍家子息はフリッツ王家と婚姻にしており、このパラディ島に投留しておられたのです。そして巨人大戦後、ヒーズル国は敗戦国として立場を追われ、その混乱の最中、将軍家の忘れがたみはこの島に取り残されたのです。あなたは我々が失った一国の主の末裔、ヒーズル国の希望です。
So what was that about? Why does Attack on Titan start on the year 845? The most egregious example of something important being left ambiguous in the story is the Great Titan War. This is the precursor to the entire situation Paradise Island is in. What really caused Eldians to start fighting with each other? Who even was the founder at the time of this war? Karl Fritz. Why didn't he stop the war using his founding titan? Why is Karl Fritz connected to the Tiber family? What even is the Tiber family? What are the Wall Titans? Are they empty vessels? Are they people? If so, who? Were they just sacrificed? If they are people, what happened to them in the manga outcome when the power of the Titans disappeared? Attack on Titan always gave context on vague plot points eventually, but what is such a major element in the story was completely abandoned. I definitely think at least the Great Titan War will be some sort of centerpiece for a major plot twist in AoE. The only theory I know that's somewhat similar is the Karl Fritz theory, which as a summary basically says this. 845 isn't the year AOT starts at, but rather there are at least 845 failed timelines. The ANR timeline is a failed timeline where Eren and Mikasa destroy the world without ending the Titan curse. Karl Fritz, instead of being the person we thought, was actually on Eren's side and planned everything. Karl Fritz likely saw the demise of his own people through future memories and built his plan, influencing future iterations of the timeline. Attack on Titan will end with Eren destroying Marley only, and the rumbling was only shock therapy for Ymir. Ymir gets rid of the Titan curse. There's a lot of cool ideas shown in this theory, but personally I believe it's just creating a story. I feel this way because most of it is explaining how it fits into the story rather than actual evidence. For example, the Karl Fritz theory says that instead of Kenny having a character arc, Ymir just hacked into Kenny's mind so they could be friends. This obviously goes against the themes and nuance that this scene has. Another thing is that it's confirmed that 845 is in fact the year date. It's shown on Eren's grid the date 844, which corresponds to his death 9 years after AOT began. The date 845 is also shown in the anime. The response by the creator is that chapter 131 to 139 aren't canon at all to Attack on Titan, and that Wiz Studios just made a mistake with the date. Guessing an entire ending is borderline impossible to do. This is how I feel about the Karl Fritz theory. It tries to solve the entire story, but completely ignores that new elements could be added. There are a lot of not only dubious ideas, but also major thematic opposition to fit the puzzle pieces together. It's to the point where even if the Karl Fritz theory is somehow 100% right, it would be completely by chance. Being the type of person that comes up with a full version of the truth, without at least evaluating the dubious parts, at least to me feels like everything this story rebels against. However, I do think a lot of elements, for example Karl Fritz being important, and the Tiber family being in on something, will probably come to be true in the future. I still recommend reading it though, since it helped me have a bigger worldview on what AoE could really be. On the topic of a bigger worldview, AoE has been a very special part of my life, ever since I started my journey back in April of 2021. Before I started making AoE theories, being shunned and looked at in a bad light was something that I was deeply afraid of, but now I don't feel that way at all. Sure, it's a major disappointment that we'll probably have to wait indefinitely for AoE, but I'm not going to cry over it. Don't you feel guilty? People say that I should feel guilty for spreading my theory and having so much confidence in something that, quote, never happened in their own words. The truth is, I don't feel guilty or regret my theories at all. I never took over anybody's free will to choose whether they believe in AoE or not. The choice to believe in AoE wasn't one I forced. When I started this journey, back at the beginning, I was a completely different person. Even if our dreams could never be fulfilled, does that mean our dreams never mattered? It doesn't. No matter what happens, and no matter what the true conclusion of AOT is, we fought alongside each other as a community. We had passion for what we believed in, and we kept fighting for our passion. Our fights, our dreams, and the bonds we formed together were real, and no ending can change that or discredit it. All the good moments we've had aren't all for nothing just because it led to death. We still enjoyed it all with the time we had left. I never delete my account or delete all my AoE theory videos just because they were wrong or something. I want the proof of our dreams to remain forever. If that means I'll have to shoulder the blame for this entire community for the rest of time, then so be it. As for me, I never look back at this community with regret or guilt. I fought for what I believed in, and saying I feel guilty because I fought for what I was passionate for would be a disservice to myself, and a disservice to the shared dream we all have. I still feel a sense of satisfaction regardless of the outcome, because we created something special together. The idea from others that AoE never existed would simply mean that AoE is our story now, and that means the AoE community as a whole has worked together to create the greatest idea in anime history. It seems like Isayama wanted AoE too. In an interview years back, Isayama also said this: No, the endings change a lot from what I had in mind before. As Attack on Titan has become more popular to people, and they've fallen in love with the characters and whatnot, I've come to think that the last chapter I had originally prepared would never work. Isayama in an interview after Core 2 said this: So the truth is the situation with Eren actually overlaps in a certain sense with my own story with this manga. When I first started this series, I was worried that it would probably be cancelled. It was a work that no one knew about, but I had already started the story with the ending in mind, and the story ended up being read and watched by an incredible number of people, and it led to me being given a huge power that I didn't quite feel comfortable with. It would have been nice if I could have changed the ending. Writing manga is supposed to be freeing, but if I was completely free, then I should have been able to change the ending. I could have changed it and said I wanted to go in a different direction, but the fact is that I was tied down to what I had originally envisioned when I was young. And so, manga became a very restrictive art form for me, similar to how the massive powers that Eren acquired ended up restricting him. For Core 2, Isayama created the storyboards for the anime original scenes. As you can see, since they're just storyboards, it should have taken Isayama maybe a week to make them all. However, November 18th, Isayama said this when asked during an event: Is there anything you requested for the last episode of the anime? A change in the ending. I wrote the storyboards for about a year after this realization ended. It is not often that the anime clears up a manga's disappointment. So Isayama spent a year writing storyboards for an apparent change in the ending when it should have taken him a week at most. Honestly, the fact that Isayama said it would have been nice if I could have changed the ending is a major slap in the face to ending defenders. This is also something people took as a nod to AoE instead of the opposite, because it was considered a heads up due to the fact that Isayama was referencing the manga ending instead of the anime. Even so, this means Isayama wanted AoE regardless of it happening or not. So even if you believe AoE is officially dead, you can rest easy knowing that AoE in fact was supposed to happen after all, and Isayama wanted a different ending. We were the ones who understood Isayama. Regardless, I still believe there's something out there for us to wait for. There's a major secret being held regarding all topics for the A&R ending and the AOT staff. You'll see a similar pattern throughout all of these. Ai Higuchi, the creator of Akuma no Ko, which we know depicts A&R symbolically, said this on a Twitter post: It's a song that I wrote for the ending song of Attack on Titan, but I have a clear message that I want to convey through this song. I wish I could tell you someday. The meaning of the Devil's Child and the meaning after the second verse, but maybe I won't because it's too wild. Keep in mind, Akuma no Ko is generally considered in the AoE community as a reference to Historia having a child with Eren. Akuma no Ko means the Devil's Child, or Child of the Devil in English. Eren is depicted as a devil in AOT, so the Devil's Child is a reference to Historia having a child with Eren. These next cases of secrets being held is from the creators of the A&R music video themselves. If you're in the AoE community, you would probably already know who exactly these people are, but since this is a public video, I'm keeping the names censored. In reference to this egg, one of the creators who we'll call Mrs. S said in a tweet, "The white sphere is unknown after all." Some random guy replied to this tweet with, "Eren?" In less than 30 minutes, that tweet was deleted entirely. One of the other creators, Mr. K, openly talked to the people in the AoE community. Here's one conversation. The person says, "Thanks for following me. I really like your work on Akatsuki no Requiem's music video for Attack on Titan." Mr. K replied with, "Thank you. I'm really happy that you like it because it's a music video that I really put my heart into. When the anime reaches its final episode, I hope that everyone will be excited by the connection between the final episode and the music video. Mrs. S said this when asked about the child's name. Hello, that child's name properly exists. It's surely been a planned secret forever. This basically means that the child's name has been secret for a very long time, which is the plan. When asked about what the text on the grave means, Mr. K said, "These are original characters invented by Mrs. S. She referred to various materials when creating this character, so some parts may be similar to real languages." Since recently was the 5-year anniversary for the A&R music video, Mr. K let people ask him any question. One person asked, "The music video is a masterpiece of symbolism and I truly hope to understand one day. Can I ask who requested the creation of the music video?" Mr. K said, "I'm very happy about your evaluation of the music video. Thank you. I would like to answer the question with gratitude for that evaluation, but unfortunately it's difficult, because I try not to say anything that directly affects the interpretation of the music video. I'm sorry for not meeting your expectations." Another person added, "I would like to ask you one more question. Have you ever met Hajime Isayama? Since this is the last question, I would like to answer it sincerely, but I try not to answer anything that directly affects the interpretation of the music video. I'm so sorry. By the way, do you know the game Minesweeper? It's a simple but very interesting game. I don't want you to take it too seriously, and I'm sure you don't mean anything either, but your question reminded me of playing Minesweeper. To put it simply, Mr. K is implying that the question is dangerous and should be avoided." Another separate person asked, "Can you tell us what's happening with the music video after the final episode of the anime is released?" I think that's difficult. When the time comes to talk about the details of the music video, it might be when everyone is walking with canes. With that, it's clear that everything related to A&R's true meaning is a secret. Not only that, but Mr. K said, when the time comes to talk about the details of the music video. That means there is a time coming when we'll understand the music video, which will allow Mr. K to talk about it freely. In general, the amount of hints to AoE that still hold up today are incredible. The fact that A&R even exists. The fact that A&R was 1-to-1 in Akuma no Ko even though Akuma no Ko came out after the manga ended. The fact that the Last Titans cover art by Link to Ryzen is literally A&R. The fact that the lyrics for the song say, "Chased by the falling sun tearing at my wings, I yearn for dawn's song with longing." The fact that the Last Titans opening has so many elements from AoE even though it's after the anime ended, which is even crazier than what Akuma no Ko did. The fact that they've referenced the Mikasa death pose time and time again. And the fact that the details for A&R are still a secret even though the anime ended doesn't make sense at all. It's still being hinted at after all these years. Why? Without AoE, we'll never know. When it comes to A&R being the destination, I've never doomed. Though I must say it's a shame things aren't straightforward anymore. I'm not the type of person that enjoys moving goalposts. We don't exactly have solid ground to stand on other than knowing it will happen eventually. Believe it or not, but I do have a lot of self-awareness on how my constant theorizing may look like to other people. I've known from the beginning that there are uncomfortable parallels to religion and the AoE community. I've kept my thoughts towards the manga ending ambiguous, since I've already made peace with that ending a long time ago. When I saw the manga ending adapted in Core 2, I wasn't that upset over it compared to other people. For some reason the idea that I, quote, wasted 2.5 years of my life isn't very bad to think about even though I still believe in AoE fully. Oh, you will. It only just hit you right now. Wait for it to sink in. Wait for you to remember all the undeniable evidence. And then you'll start getting angry. Just like I did. I can see why people were so crazy over AoE not happening though, since we've waited so long for it. Really, it's all about the mindset, and your viewpoint on what it means to have your desires unfulfilled. When I first started making AoE videos, I was waist deep in the Undertale community, so you know I was super sensitive to hate online. In the AoE community, I thought out of anybody else in this community that I was the most sensitive. The idea of facing the wrath of the internet used to be absolutely off limits for me, but I got used to hate. I didn't think that was possible at all, but by the time Core 2 came out I was able to handle it just fine. I've managed to shoulder the burden of the worst fandom in the world somehow. Even so, I'm not a hero or a prophet. I've always just been someone giving my thoughts and sharing what I believe to be the truth. Besides AoE, I do a lot of other things on this channel. I'm already working on projects outside of Attack on Titan. In the end, I was able to see it through with a smile, even though I built the Tower of Babel for myself over and over again. Regardless, the duality of hopium and doomium still exists. Will you stay strong? Have you fully went into the dark side? Or do you feel too separate from AOT to care anymore? That's up to you. Until then, you can spend time doing other things, because this is truly the last chapter of AoE concluded for sure. Lying down a bouquet of flowers, to a promise that cannot be kept, satisfaction slowly recedes from sight, at the end of this fathomless road. I think that fits me. I'll always remain to hold a bouquet of flowers to this community until I die, no matter the outcome. I hope we'll meet again. when we're all walking with canes.